Tell us a story.
Yes, tell us a story.
Alrighty, we've had sort of a heat wave the last couple of days. It's been 50, 55 degrees and been raining and raining and raining. Well, today it's went down to 40-ish. It's not supposed to get higher than 45. And it is wet. Alright, we're going to let the old rusty bucket warm up. I saw yesterday that Matthew had mentioned a little something on his channel. He was had the old Dodge and it was full of gas and he wasn't going to use it anymore, and he hated to waste it, so he just went over and drilled a hole in the bottom of the gas tank and drained it out into a pan. And when I saw him do that, saw what he had done, it reminded me when I used to work at the dealership back in, during the time that they had the gas crisis. It was 71, 72, 73 when it was first hitting, and there was lines and lines of gas and waiting on gas and harder to get gas, and gas, basically gasoline rationing is what it really was. They would only let you get $5 to $10 worth of gas. It's not that the price was so high, it's just they didn't have gas. There was, when I was working at the dealership up there, one of the deals was you buy a car from us and you get a full tank of gas. So during that time we were still filling up all the tanks. Well, what had started happening was we'd go to start some of the cars up and they wouldn't start, and there would be a gas leak under them, and we go to repair it, and what we were finding was a large hole about the size of your small finger punched into the bottom of the gas tank. Well, what come to find out what was happening was that someone was going around with one of the 5-gallon steel. They're plastic nowadays, but back then they were steel 5-gallon buckets that spackling or chemicals would come in, and they were taking on the top of it, they were mounting a crossboard piece of metal, and then they had a spike with a slot cut in it. So they were taking either spikes or a 1/4-inch angle iron and mounting to this cross membrane, drilling holes in the top of the metal bucket, and they would lift the back of the car up. So let's say 68, 69, 70, 71, 72 Novas that we were selling, Chevelles that we were selling, even the Impalas had the gas tank all the way to the back, and it was a flat gas tank. And it was just at the right height to where if you could grab the bumper and lift it a little bit, you could shove this bucket underneath of it and then let it slam down. And when it did, it ruptured the tank. And since most of those were vented systems, they weren't the sealed systems that they come up with nowadays. I mean, if you went to try and do that nowadays, I mean, you'd get a little gas, but it's a sealed system, so there wouldn't be any air in. Back then, they just had a regular vent. It was open air vent, and the gas would just pour into these buckets. And they would walk off. They'd do 2 or 3 cars. They'd walk off, come back an hour later, and those buckets would be full, and they just pick them up. Well, we used to leave all the cars out in the car lot. You'd see rows and rows and rows of cars out there, and they just drive in with a vehicle to look around. So it wasn't anything unusual for somebody to come out at, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and look at the cars. And it was before the days of security systems at these car lots that I worked at. But I used to come in and set up all my gear, get everything ready, go out to grab a car to bring it in to do touch-up work to it or do a safety evaluation. I was the safety mechanic for a lot of these places, travel around, and I'd run it through a 2-hour rigorous safety test of whether or not they passed to be able to be sold as qualified used cars. And there was these holes in the gas tanks. So then we started putting only a few dollars worth of gas in the cars and everything like that. But I mean, that just was amazing that when I saw Matthew drill that hole to drain that gas tank out, that's what it reminded me of. We didn't have any more trouble after a couple years after the gas crisis went by. I mean, we didn't have any more trouble, but we had invested in some type of security patrol by then and everything. So, well, it's just something that was brought to mind. I thought maybe I'd share that with you, but it was just wild. Nowadays, the way the gas tanks are and stuff, like I said, you wouldn't get that much out of them. It would just be a drip, drip, drip. And a lot of the tanks have bladders in them. They're self-sealing bladders, and some of them have the wafer, the anti-explosion wafers in them, which will cut down on a lot of stuff. And the gas tanks aren't located out on the perimeters of vehicles anymore. They're more deeper into the center of vehicles, behind frame rails and bracing, so you couldn't really, pick the car up enough to even get anything under most of these cars. So, well, we're going to get in. That was something just to think back on. I've got a lot of work to do today. Let's see if we can, yeah, that cleaned up well. So, we're going to ride. See ya!
Story time is over!
Damn, that was annoying.